Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Konich-Yeehaw podcast. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jared.
And today, we are talking about isekais. So,
Yes.
Jared, what is an isekai?
So, what an isekai is that it's whenever one or multiple characters are transported to a new world.
Mm-hmm.
So, that can be in a number of different ways. I'd say maybe traditionally, it means that they died in some way and then are reincarnated.
Mm-hmm.
That's not always the case, but that's typically what it is.
Right.
On top of that, so one of the tropes about that actually is that they're usually hit by a truck.
Okay. So, like a sudden death.
Yes,
Right.
but no, I mean specifically hit by a truck. Though.
Okay.
It's even become like a meme of like, oh, truck-kun, like isekai me. Like it is like such a common occurrence.
Okay.
That it's become a meme.
Mm-hmm. I was just going to say that if maybe you guys aren't familiar with isekais and like you're maybe thinking, oh, like transported to another world, born to another world, like what does that look like? I would say probably the most popular Western example of this is Chronicles of Narnia.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So imagine like literally you're just a guy, and then you walk through the magic wardrobe, right? And then you're in another world. So it's essentially like that grand also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't really think about the Chronicles of Narnia. That is a good example.
Yeah.
So like Chronicles of Narnia, usually the isekai takes place from modern time to fantasy medieval.
Yeah, fantasy non-specific.
Yes, non-specific, but it's usually swords and magic.
Magic,
And-
swords, fairies, elves,
Yes.
all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
There are a few exceptions to this, but it is very rare. I could only think of two. One is the second season of Sword Art Online, where instead of going to the fantasy video game, they go into the gun video game.
Right. It's
So-
gun art online.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, just a side note, I'm not that big a fan of Sword Art Online.
Yeah, I'm not either.
I watched it some when I think it was on Toonami. Not that big a fan of it, but all of Sword Art Online's like side content, like not original content, is really good. Like, just a side note, just to throw that in there. And then there's also another isekai called the Saga of Tanya the Evil. And it's about this like business guy that dies and is reincarnated as this like little girl.
Okay.
Yeah, just stick with me with this. So then for some reason she can like talk to God or something, and she's like a super soldier. And it takes place in like nondescript World War II.
Okay.
So like it has like that military garb,
Right.
and
So
like
it's
rifles.
still in the past, but
Yes.
not like that far.
Yeah.
Like medieval.
But it is, yeah, so there's guns.
Yes.
There's guns and like tanks and stuff. But there's also jetpacks.
So that's futuristic.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yes. And so it's like, I guess that would be the only instance that I can think of. Oh my gosh, I just remembered. We've talked about this off before, and there was one instance of isekaiing into the future, but I don't remember what it was.
Ooh.
Maybe I remember it later.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
but I don't remember what it
Into the
was.
future.
Yeah.
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 I-
Oh well. Some tropes of isekai. So tell me if you've heard of any of these.
Okay.
So the first one was truck-kun.
Which I had not heard of.
Yes, it is just to like kind of preface, Natalie does not watch isekai.
I don't watch isekais. I looked through my anime list before starting this episode, and I could find 3
Yeah.
on my list of 70 plus that I've watched. So,
And one of the reasons why Natalie doesn't watch isekai is because we watch anime together and I don't watch isekai. I used to watch isekai, but now I've pretty much given up on it. Just too much garbage has been
It's
produced
very
in the
saturated.
genre.
Very saturated
Yes.
market right now.
So, more tropes. So, the character is reincarnated as the hero.
Yes.
Okay? They are incredibly overpowered.
Yes.
There is a harem.
Now this one is both. I've heard of it, but I didn't think it was that common.
Yes. So it is very common for the main character to be male, and then all the other characters to be female, and at least one or two, if not all of them, like him.
Right. Yeah.
And then lastly, this one's kind of a new one. I've heard other people talk about this before, is slavery.
Yes, that one was a shock to me too.
So I don't know what it is, but slavery became the new like norm in isekai. So like how it's usually set up is that it's like, oh, slavery is bad in my world. And then they come across a slave and they're like, I will save you. But then they like enter some kind of slave contract and then she's still a slave.
Okay.
Like he's not saving her, kind of. He's just like it's so weird. It's such a weird thing because like in the modern world, slavery is like bad.
Bad.
But
Right.
like in these fantasy worlds, they're just like, it's slavery. It's another world. It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's probably fine.
Yeah. So that's become like a new trope in isekai anime. There are a handful. So like I said, isekai anime is usually normal modern day to fantasy world.
Yes.
There are a few exceptions to that, to being a reverse isekai. The first one that I can think of is the Fate series. So Fate Stay Night, Fate Unlimited Blade Works, all like that, or Fate Zero. So the plot of the Fate series is that like mages in modern time summon historical figures.
Yeah.
Like King
wild.
Arthur and things like that.
Uh-huh.
It's really interesting to see what they make of some characters, because it's kind of an inside joke among like the fans of like, oh, which male historical figure are they going to turn into a girl this time? Because that's like a reoccurring thing.
Okay. Yeah.
So the other one is the Gate series, or Gate. So the plot of that is that these portals open up and monsters come through. And then like the US, or not the US, but like the military tries to kill all these monsters. And so it's like fantasy monsters versus modern military. And then lastly, probably our favorite is Devil is a Part-Timer.
Yes. Which we started watching the second season, decided not to finish it.
Yeah.
But the first season is really good.
It is,
I
yeah.
have seen it, the first season, multiple times. But essentially it is Satan, like the Satan, gets himself and his like officer isekai'd into the modern world, and he has to deal with modern problems like rent and electricity.
Yeah.
And keeping the water on. So he gets a job at McDonald's, and it's just him, like, genuinely trying to survive.
Yeah.
But, like, in a very, like, to us, a normal way.
Yeah, it's like low income living.
Yeah, low income living.
There's like, by the end of it, there's like 3 of them living in this 1-room apartment.
Yep.
And it's just so funny because he's like this grand,
He was
leader.
Satan. He
Yeah,
was,
he's
like,
this grand leader in his world, but
Yeah.
like just a nobody in our world.
Right.
So it's pretty, it's reverse in also that it's like he's all super powerful,
And he gets weak.
but then he gets weak.
Right.
While it's usually the opposite with isekai. Um, as we said earlier, isekai has become such a oversaturated market that it's actually become kind of the new norm for isekai to be parodies of isekai.
Yes.
So a majority of isekai that come out now are actually like parodies of the genre.
Yes. And some of them are also really good parodies.
Yes.
From what I understand, one that, and you can tell me if this was a parody or not, but that time I got reincarnated as a slime, is that a parody? Because I know it is very popular.
I don't know. Well, I watched the first season, and honestly, I would say no.
Yeah, okay.
In the sense that it is not like, it is comedy. It's a comedy.
Right. Yeah.
But it's not like so absurd. Like it doesn't like challenge any, it doesn't really challenge any like isekai norms other
Okay.
than the fact that he's a monster.
Yeah.
But he has a human form pretty quickly.
Okay.
So like it doesn't really challenge, it doesn't like, if I remember correctly, he like goes into the new world already having knowledge of like, okay, this is what I need to do.
Right.
It's not like some others where it's like, I was reincarnated as a vending machine,
Yeah.
which is a real show that
It
is
is a real
airing
show.
right now.
Yes.
Then there's also a show that aired not too long ago called Uncle from Another World, which is about a guy that was isekai'd, and then after he like saves their world and becomes super powerful, he comes back to our world.
And he's just a guy again.
See, that's the thing. I actually think he still has his powers.
Oh, does he?
Yeah. So he's just like a regular guy in our world, just with like superpowers.
A lot of powers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then probably the pioneer of parody isekai is Konosuba. This show is like probably the funniest isekai there is. And what it is that this guy is reincarnated, and then he's talking to like the goddess that is like I'm
I am the
transporting.
goddess.
Yes, I'm transporting you to a new life, and she's like, you have one wish. You can take one thing with you, and he's like, I take you, and then it turns out that she's actually like super useless.
Yeah, he thought it was a move.
Yeah. It's like she's like super useless and an alcoholic, and then his other party member is this mage that can only do one move, and it's above her like level. It's a big explosion, and so she passes out every time, or like she becomes immobile every time that she uses it. And then their last party member is this knight, this like really strong knight, but she's like a sadist or a masochist, so she like wants to get hit.
Right.
And so it's basically just like an isekai, but everyone is useless.
Yeah.
And so it goes against the whole like overpowered and things like that. Also, if I remember correctly, it's like not really harem, because they kind of like, I wouldn't say they hate each other,
Right.
but
yeah.
like,
But they are also all girls.
yeah,
Right?
it is one boy, all girls.
Right.
But
so
like,
I should also say that, because I got confused whenever you said harem as well.
yeah,
Because whenever you think of like an outside of anime modern definition of harem, it is one man who is canonically with multiple women.
yes,
And what we mean in this case is just that there is one man and a bunch of women.
Yeah.
And they are all together to some capacity, like in a team or in a party, like a
Yeah.
troupe. But they aren't necessarily canonically together.
yeah. A lot of the times,
But it's the dynamic. It's that dynamic though.
Yes.
Of one man and then a bunch of women who may or may not like him.
yeah, usually it's one guy, and then all the other girls are like into him.
Right.
In this case, it's not like that, because they all are like pretty shitty in some way. Now, while I don't really watch isekai anymore, there are a handful of them that have come out moderately recently. One of them's a little older,
Mm-hmm.
but like 2010 to modern.
Okay.
So within like the past 10 years, I think.
Mm.
One of them is called I'm a Spider, So What? So this is kind of parody isekai, but I think it's done really well in that she like is reincarnated and is like, oh, I'm reincarnated, okay, but she's reincarnated as a spider monster.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like an art, she like plays the like RPG elements of it, of like, okay, I can level up, I can transform into a stronger monster,
Right.
things like that. It's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's a really smart show, and it's also really funny.
Mm-hmm.
The manga's probably better than the show though. Then there's Rising of the Shield Hero. That was a pretty cool show because the main character is not liked by everyone. He's actually kind of hated by everyone, but for reasons not justly. So he was kind of blackmailed.
Okay.
And then why it's unique is because he can't do any attacks really. He only has his shield because he's the shield hero, and so he has to have his party members attack for him unless he wants to use either his shield or his fists. Which that one does also have a slave in it, where he's like, you will be my attacker.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, these slave shows, it's always like, okay, I'm gonna get this character, I'm gonna get this girl, and then you know, I'm gonna use her as one of my party members, I'm gonna like level her up and like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're always like really strong, but then they make it where like the girl likes him, and it's just kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like, regardless, another one that's pretty unique that I really liked was ReZero. ReZero is probably like really up there in some of my top
Yeah.
anime, at least the first season. I tried watching the rest of it and just couldn't get into it. Basically, this guy goes into an infinite loop of dying and then restarting from a checkpoint, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And then lastly, probably the most unique of all of these, Sunny Boy.
Right.
Sunny Boy is an incredibly cool show.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to talk some about it?
Yeah, so Sunny Boy is kind of, well, when it came out, we did talk about it because it is fairly recent.
Yeah.
We would call it Yuasa's Lord of the Flies,
Yeah.
because it has a unique art style, kind of similar to Yuasa's, but it is not a Yuasa work. And also, like Lord of the Flies, it is, well, high schoolers this time, but they're just kind of like put on a deserted island. And it's because there's some like mess up with the space-time continuum. It's like it's pretty complicated stuff.
Yeah, it's like very complicated.
It's very complicated stuff. Basically, they're in school one day, and then they look outside, and they're in the void. And that's it. And then the whole show is them trying to figure out how they got in the void, and then consequently also how to get out of the void.
Mm-hmm.
This void does become an island, but like fairly quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So I almost would say that you can and you can't classify Sunny Boy as an isekai, because while they are like transported to another world, it is in a very unconventional way.
Yeah. By the definition of transported to another world, it is most definitely an isekai, though.
Right. And then everybody does get powers. That's true.
One character becomes incredibly overpowered.
Which one was that one?
The one that can like fly and bend
space
continuum.
He gets like really overpowered.
Yeah.
Like right away. But our main character seemingly does not have any powers.
Yeah.
And not everybody does, but the main character in particular does not. Until they figure out, and also all their powers are really weird.
Yeah, it's super unique.
Yeah. And I get his power ends up being like being able to open all these portals to all these different worlds, which like so he becomes the key, right? Because maybe he can open the right portal and he can get back to their world. But it's a very interesting show.
It's very
In
interesting.
that regard, yeah.
Now, one thing that you might notice about Isekai.
Oh wait, actually, before we go into that, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you a question.
Okay.
Q&A time. So, why is it that you think most isekais do transport you into the past? Transport
Into the past?
Transport a modern day character into the past.
It's easier.
Easier? Like in what way?
So you don't have to think as hard about it. So
Right,
while
okay.
some shows have like a magic system and things like that, you don't have to think about like, okay, how is society set up in the future? Like how am I going to make combat not boring by incorporating guns into it?
Okay.
Like, and because you can also have magic in the past. And
Right,
so
yeah.
like with magic,
With like in
that-
like a fantasy, this like
fantasy
world,
yeah. And so it's just also like just kind of like I'm generally speaking with this, it's just more popular.
You think so?
Oh yeah. So fantasy, like medieval style fantasy, is more popular than sci-fi.
Really? You think so?
Yeah, especially now. I mean, that's why like shows like Gundam, like Mecha, like is not popular really anymore. And like, because we're kind of past the point of like the sci-fi boom. So if you think like pre-2000s, sci-fi
Right.
was incredibly
Was
popular
huge,
because
right.
of like the year 2000 and things like that.
Yeah.
But now that we've reached this like what we thought the future was going to be like, we realize that we progress in like
Pretty slowly.
pretty slowly.
Pretty
Not
slowly.
as we don't progress as fast as we thought we were going to. And so now it's more about like, okay, well, what can I do about this? Because you don't have to try to be any sort of realistic whenever you're put in a fantasy.
Right.
So you don't have to, like I kind of said earlier, you don't have to think about it as much.
Okay.
It's a lot easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. I actually was thinking that it was because it's easier to make a hero. Like, the idea of progress, right?
Yeah,
So a
yeah.
person in modern time, when are they going to... In a modern time right now, when is this person going to be, like, insane, like an insane hero? It's going to be in the past.
Yeah,
because,
of course.
You know, of how advancements have happened. So I didn't know if it was maybe because of that.
There's also like, this kind of goes into what I was saying about it being easier to make a like fantasy in the past versus the future. There are so many people, so much more people on Earth now than there was in the past, that like one person being a hero is way harder, or like being recognizably a hero
Right.
is way harder than it is in like if you're going like medieval villages
Makes sense.
and things
Yeah.
like that. There's also just a lot less world building. So like whenever they travel somewhere, this is why I commend like Cowboy Bebop and like things that do like sci-fi, because specifically like Cowboy Bebop, they go to a bunch of different places.
Right, yeah.
But like there's a lot of space in between. So like in that space part, they don't really have to be like, oh, well, you're going through this town, you're going through like this district, things like that. And so that's an easy way to like progress from one place to another with space sci-fi. That is also kind of the same with medieval fantasy, where it's like there isn't, between one town to the next town, there isn't a lot in between.
It's trees. Right.
So you don't have to, you can be like, oh, they fight some monsters and, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be like, oh yeah, they go through the red light district and they go through,
This district
you know,
and
the
this-
city and, you know, things like that.
Okay, I see.
Also, like I said, I'm pretty sure it's just more popular as well.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
But I believe it.
Like, I mean, think about it. Another way to think about it is like a game that just came out is Baldur's Gate 3.
Right.
Massively popular.
Mm-hmm.
Fantasy.
Right.
Yeah, sci-fi just isn't as popular as it used to be.
Yeah, that's just crazy to me. Because I would think that sci-fi isekai would also be really successful.
See, I think that too.
Yeah.
I think it's just a lot harder.
That's fair.
Because you have to do a lot more world building.
Yeah. That was actually my only question.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think that, like, I wish that a lot more people would make, like, sci-fi isekai.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, there was one that...
Yeah, because I remember I even tried to, like, kind of argue with you earlier when I was like, well, what about video game isekai?
Yeah.
Because obviously the idea of, like, for example, Sword Art Online,
Yeah.
you might think, oh, that is a sci-fi isekai because of how it is happening.
Right.
But when they get to the other world, it's a fantasy game.
Yeah, it's still fantasy.
Yeah.
See, and this is the weird thing, too. And it's that even sci-fi shows will still have fantasy aspects to it.
Right.
Like, there's a show that's called, like, I think it's called, like, Knights and Magic and something like that. If I remember correctly, it's an isekai, but it's mechs.
Okay.
But it's like sci-fi mechs. I mean, sorry, it's like fantasy mechs, so it's magic mechs.
Okay.
But it's still fantasy.
Right.
Yeah. And so we're in the world, the, like, media right now is kind of in the fantasy boom.
Mm-hmm.
We've kind of been in it for the past, like, I don't know, like 10 or so years. I'm trying to think of, like, yeah, we've been in it for a little while.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing sci-fi come back. Like, I know Armored Core just came out.
Uh-huh.
Cyberpunk 2077 is about to have a new DLC.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Gundam is big again. But I don't think it'll probably... sci-fi will probably never be as big as it used to be. But I do think it is coming back.
All right.
Now, what I was saying... one thing that you might notice about all of these isekai
Most of them, at least.
Yes, a lot of isekai have very long names. Comically long. And the reason for that is because they're based off of light novels. And Japanese light novels are a little different than American novels in the fact that they don't have a summary written on the back of them. So what they do instead is that they include what the story is going to be about in their title. For example, I was reincarnated as a slime.
That's what it is.
Pretty straightforward. That's what it is.
That time I got reincarnated as a vending machine.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Now what we did...
And this is also a popular convention game.
Yes. So what we did was that we got a couple of real... isekai names and a couple that we made up ourselves. And we're going to test each other to see if we can figure out which ones are the real or not.
Yes. And the thing is that I already mentioned I have seen 3 isekais. Jared has seen many more, and I am just hoping that none of the real ones that I picked at random are ones that you have seen.
Yeah.
I'm hoping.
Do you want to go first or should I go first?
Okay. I can go first. Okay. Here is the title.
Wait, actually, I think how I want to do this is that... do you have a pen?
I don't. I don't know what happened to my pen.
So I want to go through all of them, and then you tell me which ones I got and which one I didn't.
Oh, so you want to do all of them at once?
Yes, all of them at once.
Okay.
Because I think that we kind of ruined this because we said we got 3 real ones, 3 fake ones.
We did already tell each other
Yeah,
that we had
and
3
so
ones.
this will make it where I don't know which ones I got right or not.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So you don't know what's left.
Yes, I don't know what's left.
Okay, so you want me to just read all of mine?
Yes.
At once?
So I'll answer
Random
each
order?
of them
Okay.
and random order. Yeah.
Okay. The first title is The Hero is Overpowered but Overly Cautious.
That one's real.
Okay. The next one is The World's Prettiest Idol was reincarnated as an assassin.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think that one's fake.
Okay. The next one is Reincarnated as a noble knight, but I'm just a mailman.
Ooh, that's a hard one. I think that's real.
Okay. Wait a second. I just realized I'm marking these incorrectly.
Mhm.
Hold on. Okay. Okay, next one. High school prodigies have it easy, even in another world.
That one's real.
Okay. Next one. The Eighth Son. Are you kidding you?
Are you kidding you?
Yeah.
That's real. That's gotta be real. You wouldn't make it awkward like that.
Okay. And the last one. If you keep my servant in enemy territory, you are all dead.
I don't know how many times I said real. I feel like I had said real for like most of them. That one's fake. That one's fake.
All right, that was all of them. Do you want to
Okay.
hear the verdict, or do you want to go?
Let's do mine
do
and
yours
then we'll
first.
yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So, don't you love your dad and his overpowered kicks?
I think that one is real.
Another world zombie apocalypse is not my problem.
Ooh. Ooh. That's a good show. That would be a good show. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's... The thing is that I'm going to think all of these are real.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to just say...
That's fair. I thought like all of yours was real as well.
Okay. Okay, in other words, that one's fake.
The hero and his elf bride open a pizza parlor in another world.
Oh, no. The hero and his elf bride open a pizza parlor. That one's fake.
That one time I reincarnated as a low-level mob and aimed to be the big boss.
Oh, that one's real.
A nerd in real life, but a hero in another.
That one's fake.
And lastly, J.K. Haru is a sex worker in another world.
I also am forgetting how many of each I said, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go with that one being fake.
Okay. So, what is my verdict?
You got all but one of them correct.
Really?
Yes.
Which one did I get wrong?
You guessed that one of them was real, and it was a fake one.
Okay.
And it was reincarnated as a noble knight, but I'm just a mailman.
Was that one fake?
That one's fake.
Oh, okay.
I made that
okay.
one up.
That one I had a feeling.
I made that one up, but you got all the other ones correct.
Okay.
Have you seen some of the shows that I said, or do you
Only
just know
one of them.
Only one of them? Which one did you see?
Well, I recognized the very first one that you said.
The hero is overpowered but
yes.
overly cautious? Okay.
Yeah, I recognized that one, but all the rest of them I had no idea.
Okay. I'm just curious.
You got all of them wrong except for one.
No! No!
So-
No!
The hero and his elf bride open a pizza parlor in another world.
That one's real.
Real.
Okay.
Another world zombie apocalypse is not my problem. Real.
Damn.
J.K. Haru is a sex worker in another world.
Also real?
Real.
Okay.
That one time I reincarnated as low-level mob and am aimed to be the big boss. Fake.
Damn, that's a good one, though.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Don't you love your dad and his overpowered kicks? Fake. But I made it purposeful to sound like Don't you love your mom and her overpowered 1-2 punch.
See, I
And,
literally saw that
yeah,
one on the list.
that's
and
why
think
I put this.
Why,
Yep.
And that's why I saw why I
But
was
you
thinking
got
that.
you got a nerd in real life, but a hero in another is fake. That one is fake. You got that one right.
Okay, I was like, that one's a little too basic. Just
Mm-hmm.
a little. Okay, the one with the 8th son, are you kidding you? I was like, I thought maybe it could work. I don't know.
Was that one?
It's real.
That one's real. Yeah.
That one's
yeah,
real.
Yeah. It's because I didn't think that you would. I thought that if you did it, you'd put, "Are you kidding me?"
I know, and that's what it's
Yeah.
supposed to sound like. But
Yeah.
that's how it said it online. If the internet lied to me, and it is supposed to be, "Are you kidding me?"
So yeah, these are some isekai.
Some silly names.
Yeah,
yes.
some silly names
If you
for
ever see a
isekai.
silly name in an anime, it's probably an isekai.
Tell us your silliest isekai names that you can find.
It's the Chronicles in Narnia.
Yeah, for real.
Well, that was our isekai episode. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing us talk a little bit more about a different genre in anime than what we usually watch even. We were just thought we would try and branch out. Mostly because of the silly names. I mean, who doesn't love a little fun game of
Yeah.
guessing which anime is real or not? And it's so much more fun whenever it's isekai titles because they are so ridiculous. You can make them more ridiculous. But yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in to this episode of the Konich-Yeehaw podcast. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Jared.
And yeah, thank you guys so much for listening. Yeehaw.
Yeehaw.